6080162 or 503-3591, 503-3591. That's KFC's delivery service from the Amazonia location. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. A United States-funded opinion poll conducted earlier this year shows that cost of living, unemployment and the coronavirus are the biggest problems among Guyanese. The poll was conducted for the International Republican Institute IRI between January 4 and 24 through face-to-face interviews in the homes of 1,500 Guyanese adults 18 years and older based on the 2012 census. The results show that a mere 2% of Guyanese were concerned about the oil sector and 4% about crime and security. Funded by the U.S. government's National Endowment for Democracy, the poll says 26% of Guyanese are concerned about cost of living and high prices and 17% about unemployment. The poll also says 4% are concerned about other economic issues, 11% about COVID-19, 8% about corruption, 7% about internal conflicts, including ethnic and religious conflicts. But 30%, 19% and 12% are women who believe that cost of living and high prices, unemployment and COVID-19 respectively are major issues for them compared to 23, 16 and 10% of their male counterparts. In terms of the current economic situation of their households, 50% of all the respondents say it was somewhat good, 17% very good, 17% somewhat bad, 12% very bad, and 4% don't know or refuse to answer. Speeding drivers along the new Mandela Avenue to Eccles four-lane highway will soon be sent tickets and can eventually lose their licenses. President Irfaan Ali made the announcement at the official commissioning of the more than $2 billion highway that's expected to ease traffic congestion on the East Demerara corridor.
The information will be exchanged on platforms 1, and the adjustment in the laws will come where necessary to activate the demerit system for drivers so that those who continuously abuse the road will lose their license. So this is the new feature on this highway. And you can't accuse anyone, any police officer, of shooting a gun, the speed gun, and tell the man he set the speed gun and then shot the vehicle speed. All of this will be done electronically.
He warns that drivers who fail to pay tickets will be barred from renewing their documents.
There will then be a monthly printout, and your tickets will be sent to your home. You are then required to pay your tickets to the Guyana Revenue Authority. Should you default on your ticket, your registration, your road use license will not be renewed in the following year. Simple. One Guyana means responsibility, discipline, commitment. So the year is 2025 and people are journeying along the highway in full respect and regard for each other and the rule of law, an important part of that journey.
He said the relevant legislation will be amended to back up the system that will include sensors and cameras that will capture vehicle numbers, pictures of drivers and front seat occupants and speed. President Irfaan Ali on Thursday announced that a perennial flooding in the South Rhine-Belt area whenever there is heavy rainfall will be addressed in the coming months. Speaking at the commissioning of the Mandela Avenue to Eccles four-lane highway, he said community consultations would begin shortly.
The drainage of this area, South Rhine-Belt area, is one of the most important pieces of infrastructure that has to be addressed. So as I have this platform, let me assure you that very soon the full engineering team will be in South Georgetown to do the full consultation with you so that the people in this community will be part of this decision making. And further, the year is 2025 and the drainage in South Georgetown, South Rhine-Belt will be completed.
Extremely heavy rainfall, even with a short duration, leaves many streets in the lower flats inundated with several inches of water. The main artery, the Aubry Barker Street, is also very difficult to traverse during floods. The president's announcement of efforts to fix the drainage problem in South Rhineveldt coincides with his plan to build a network of highways from the East Coast to East Bank, Demerara, and elsewhere. Opposition leader Aubry Norton is objecting to the government's stance on civil society. Vice President Barry Jagnew has on a number of occasions lashed back at civil society for criticizing the government. He has said that civil society did not contest elections. But Mr. Norton, in referring to the 2005 report on the needs assessment of the Guyana National Assembly by Commonwealth Advisor Sir Michael Davies, highlighted the important role of the private sector and the civil society.
Mr. Speaker, when the Davies report was written, it was established that civil society was essentially excluded. And all that was done was there to involve civil society. Yet we have a vice president, one of the two vice presidents, telling us that because they didn't go to an election, they have no place. If you are talking about democracy, then civil society must have a place in that society.
Mr. Norton, in his maiden debate as opposition leader, recalled that the Davies report had found that sittings of the National Assembly had been arranged without sufficient notice, and a draft legislation had been rushed through the House. The report by the Commonwealth Advisor had said that civil society and the private sector had a right to comment on public affairs and the legislation on behalf of those they seek to represent. A 36-year-old woman from Lethem in Region 9 has been killed at Pappy Landing, Middle Mazaroni in Region 7. Police gave her name as Vanessa Rodriguez, also known as Chinese Girl. According to police investigations, the incident occurred between April 12 and 13. Police say they have arrested a male suspect in whose company she was last seen on the evening of April 12. Investigators say that about 10 a.m. on April 13, the body of Vanessa Rodriguez, also known as Chinese Girl, was found lying face down in a track. A chopped wound was seen in the head, and there were several other marks of violence. A woman who allegedly stabbed a 4-year-old child has been charged with attempted murder. Police say that 29-year-old Padmini Dwarka of 185 Temeri Cemetery Road, East Bank, Demerara, was granted $150,000 bail. She is accused of stabbing 4-year-old Zahara Lewis of 185 Temeri Cemetery Road. Ms. Dwarka was not required to plead to the charge when it was read to her by Magistrate Judy Latchman. Dwarka has to return to court on May 17. 3 persons were charged yesterday in connection with an armed robbery they allegedly committed on a contractor at his home earlier this month. They were jointly charged with the offense allegedly committed in Alex Aldridge on April 6 at 23 Good-for-Wachting Squatting Area, East Coast, Demerara. They were refused bail and ordered to return to court on May 16. Those charged with robbery under arms are 30-year-old Adrian Fernandez, a laborer of South Riselas, East Coast, Demerara, 30-year-old Gladwin MacDonald, a laborer of Good-for-Wachting Squatting Area, 23-year-old Emmanuel Payne of Good-for-Wachting Housing Scheme. Aldridge said the men stole 4 gold rings valued $150,000, 1 silver chain valued $80,000, and $5,000 in cash. Aldridge was shot to his leg while resisting the bandits who had invaded his home. Police say the men were arrested after investigators reviewed video footage and sought legal advice. Turning to news now from the Caribbean, the highly contagious BA.2 Omicron subvariant is in Barbados. This is according to results from the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA. Details from Barbados Today.
It's confirmed the highly contagious Omicron BA.2 subvariant of the COVID-19 virus is in Barbados. Health and Wellness Minister Ian Goodin-Edjo made the disclosure as he reported on the results of tests conducted.
Based on the results of samples sent to the Carrefour lab in Trinidad for analysis, I am now confirming that the BA2 subvariant of COVID does exist in Barbados. In fact, 90% of the samples sent to Carrefour were found to be positive for this Omicron variant, which is highly contagious, but which does not generally lead to serious illness.
The health minister said that since March 28, the island has recorded 5,104 new infections, and according to the latest data, 428 new cases were recorded on Wednesday, resulting in a record high positivity rate of 28%. Gooding-Edgell said there will be no change in protocols, but he urged Barbadians to exercise their caution.
As we head into our long Easter weekend, I once again advise that the tightening of any of the protocols is not being considered. But at the same time, I am sure that Barbadians as a whole will practice restraint, discipline, and moderation with their social activities and interactions over the next few days.
Barbados' Health Minister Ian Gooding-Edgell ending that report from Barbados today. In Antigua, farmers have been complaining about the theft of their produce. Prairie Larceny has been identified as one of the major constraints facing agriculture and farmers in Guyana and several other Caribbean countries. We get more from ABS Radio.
There has been a renewed focus on tackling the scourge of Prairie Larceny following crucial talks yesterday. Farmers from around the country engaged in crucial discussions with the Police Superintendent Elson Kwame and Extension Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Owalabi Elabanjo, at the Multipurpose Cultural and Exhibition Center. The discussions centered around the concerns from the farmers that law enforcers have not adequately responded to their appeals for action to address Prairie Larceny. Now, the police have agreed to intensify their assistance to the farmers in their efforts to operate in a safer environment. The meeting agreed stepping up police patrols around farming areas across the country and working closely with farmers are some of the areas which need immediate improvement. While the police acknowledged some of the laws which govern Prairie Larceny are outdated, and the discussions will be held on efforts to amend those laws. Well, the police and agricultural officials will be meeting with farmers in the various communities or farming districts around the island to fine-tune the way forward to more effectively address the challenge of Prairie Larceny.
That report from ABS Radio in Antigua. Rwandan President Paul Kagame on Friday ended a 3-day state visit to Jamaica by signing 2 agreements. Both countries say the agreements underscored the need for closer collaboration between the African country and the Caribbean Community CARICOM. The 2 countries signed a Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation and Tourism and a Memorandum of Understanding on Political Consultation. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness described his bilateral talks with Kagame as critical on various issues of mutual interest. The Jamaican leader says there have been additional commitments to further explore cooperation in culture, health, youth engagement, energy, and tourism, which they're assured will yield great benefits for both their countries. Holness told the ceremony that deepening relations with Africa has always been an area of focus for his administration, and the Jamaica-Rwanda relationship should therefore be seen within the greater framework of their historical connection, not only with the continent but with Rwanda, since the establishment of diplomatic relations in November 1998. He said that the 2 governments' leaders were able to exchange views on the CARICOM-Africa relationship and are both of the opinion that this is a vehicle for a greater collaboration. The Rwandan leader told the ceremony that the wheels of cooperation do not need to be reinvented, as Jamaica and Rwanda are already members of key international organizations such as the Commonwealth and the Organization of African, Pacific, and Caribbean States, and so they can leverage those platforms for a mutual benefit. A St. Lucia human rights lawyer is urging caution and reason to stage protests during a visit by British royals for reparations. More from HTS St. Lucia.
The Royals' recent tour of some Caribbean islands in March continues to stir passionate debate about the way forward for the region as former colonies and now independent states. One local media commentator had labeled the royal tour as an unwelcomed welcome. Even in Jamaica, resistance and defiance over the royals' visit made international news. Back in St. Lucia, the Earl and Countess of Wessex are scheduled to visit in April. Attorney-at-Law Mary Francis questions the outrage expressed by some pundits over the royals' visit, given that the island, though independent, has retained ties to the crown.
We still have the Governor General as a representative of the Queen in St. Lucia. So, in fact, if we are going to protest against the royals, aren't we protesting even against ourselves, because the Governor General is right there in our Constitution, head of state?
Francis says the opportunity presented itself many years ago for St. Lucia to completely break all ties with the British Crown. She says to feign fury now would be an embarrassment, not only to the royal visitors, but also to the nation.
We had the opportunity at independence for us to go the other way like the African countries. So we have kept the Queen as our head of state in our Constitution. And to protest now, I don't know what form the protest would take, but to protest now is just it's ironic, you know.
Given the loudest call has come for reparations, Francis has sought to make it clear that she remains in support of such action. However, she notes that there are proper channels at the Reparations Committee's disposal to get its point across, rather than a protest over the royal visit.
I have never heard of a petition being made to the Governor General, who is the Queen representative right there, a petition to the Governor General to forward to the Queen in England. I haven't heard that. So we have to be careful that we are not actually making a mockery of ourselves, you know, when we do those things, you know. I agree that there is the case of reparations is a just one, because of the inhumanity that our ancestors suffered and the lasting repercussions on us as a people today. However, we have to look a little bit further than that, in view of the fact that we have kept this anomaly as part of our constitutional arrangements. And maybe what it is reflecting now, that the time is more than right that we really address the anomaly and do what we have to do.
Francis calls for a look at the broader picture regarding all the formalities, traditions, and protocols handed down by the Crown that persist even while St. Lucia remains an independent state. Solange Alfred, HCS News Force.
And now we go to the BBC World Service for the latest bulletin of international news.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The chief of police in the Kiev region in Ukraine says the bodies of 900 civilians have been recovered so far in the recently liberated towns northwest of the capital. 350 bodies, the biggest number, were found in Bucha alone. Sasha Schlichter reports.
It was 2 weeks ago that reporters entering the freshly liberated town of Bucha saw dozens of bodies of civilians scattered along a road, and then a mass grave containing dozens more. The chief of police for the Kiev region said the current toll had risen to 900 and predicted there were many more under the rubble of demolished buildings in Borodyanka and Makariv. He said autopsies were being carried out on all the bodies. These towns, together with Hostomel and a few others, were unlucky to be in the path of a brutal yet ultimately doomed Russian attempt to encircle Kiev.
A Ukrainian presidential advisor has called for international arrest warrants to be issued for senior Russian politicians who advocated targeting civilians in Ukraine. Mikhailo Podolyak accused the former president, Dmitry Medvedev, and the Speaker of the Russian Parliament of being among those who'd called for the bombing of central Kiev on a massive scale. Ukraine's defence ministry has said street battles continued on Friday in the city of Mariupol, and Russian forces have not yet managed to capture it. Moscow earlier said it was in control of the port area. Tom Bateman is in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro.
The Russians have said at various points that they're in full control of the city. That doesn't seem to be quite the case. For several days now, we've had reports of the Ukrainian 36 Marines Brigade as well as Azov Battalion fighters holding out in at least two different pockets adjoining the coastline. One of those places is an extremely large iron and steel works known as Azovstal. It's a huge plant. It's one of the biggest in Europe. There are tunnels underneath it. It's an extremely difficult place for the Russians to try to gain control of, and that has been one of the major holdouts.
Ukraine says Russia did not, despite its assertions, manage to evacuate all 500 crew from the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, which sank on Thursday. Ukraine's Coast Guard said bad weather hampered the rescue effort after the Moskva was hit by missiles and ammunition on board exploded. Russia has yet to provide any clear indication of the whereabouts of the crew. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is reported to be keen to spend another $2.1 billion on new military equipment, much of which will be to help Ukraine. Reuters quotes a German government source as saying about $450 million has already been earmarked. World News from the BBC. The authorities in South Africa say 395 people have died in severe floods in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The police, army and volunteer rescuers have widened their search for missing people. Thousands of survivors are living in shelters across Durban after the deadliest storms to strike the coastal city in living memory. The mayor is Mkhulisi Kaunda.
We still have places without electricity as we speak, but our teams are working tirelessly to restore those services. Our roads have also severely been damaged by these storms, so people are unable to access shops and access schools.
Twitter's board of directors has announced the company is taking action to fend off a hostile takeover bid from the billionaire Elon Musk. The firm said it had adopted a plan which would temporarily expand shareholder rights. The strategy is called a poison pill, as our Silicon Valley reporter James Clayton explains.
A poison pill defence is what companies can deploy when they don't want to be bought. The idea is that you make yourself difficult to swallow. Twitter would essentially flood the market with new shares if Mr. Musk tried to buy more than 15% of the company. That would reduce Elon Musk's stake and make it harder to purchase Twitter. It's clever, but there are ways around it. Mr. Musk could try and bypass the board and convince shareholders to sell to him directly.
2 Muslim teenagers have been arrested in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh for allegedly playing a Pakistani patriotic song on their mobiles. A video has gone viral on social media in which a village shopkeeper in the district of Bareilly can be seen listening to a popular song called Pakistan Zindabad, Long Live Pakistan. A district police officer said charges have been filed against the cousins relating to activities that disrupt national integrity. BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
After a hard day's work, a lime at the workplace would be great, and even greater and better with KFC, with a wide choice of finger-licking meals in a wide range of sizes. Could be a birthday celebration or promotion, or a lime for no reason at all. Any lime, anytime, anywhere is better and tastier with a delicious meal from any of KFC's 9 locations, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence, open now from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
And now, to end the news, a recap of the highlights. A United States opinion poll has identified several areas that Guyanese are concerned about. Speeding drivers risk losing their road licenses when a new high-tech system is activated on the new Mandela Avenue to Eccles 4-lane highway. A woman from Region 9 has been killed in Region 7, and regionally a highly contagious Omicron subvariant is in Barbados. Farmers in Antigua are complaining bitterly about the theft of produce, and internationally, police in Ukraine say the bodies of 900 persons have been discovered. That's the end of the news, which came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.